Hi guys, Andy N, spoken label again. The amazing Mark Jackson, also known as Keith's brother. So I'm going to shut up now and straight over to Keith, and he's going to do. Are you doing one piece or did you say two, Keith? It was just one, wasn't it, today?
You call me Keith again.
Mark. Mark then.
We talked about this up there.
Yeah, we didn't.
What's going on?
It's shit for brains as normal, me, mate. Okay, Mark. What did we agree, mate? Did you do one or two for us? I can't read it now.
I was going to read. I've got a story called Gene's Not Happening.
Yeah, that one. I'm
going to read an extract from that, which is the origin of where the name Keith's brother comes from.
Brilliant. Okay, then. I'll shut up shop and put the camera onto you, mate. Go for it.
First of all, Andy, important things first. I've won the melodic.
Oh, you got it? Good man.
Got it.
Good man. Good man. Now. Live on air, that exclusive. People wondering, he's won his eBay bid. Brilliant.
Done it. Okay, so this I'm going to read an extract from this particular piece. I don't think it's recorded anywhere, so you've got a bit of a first here. Tales of the Poet's Corner and its new video jukebox had spread beyond its Lower Broughton home, across Salford and beyond. The pub had been revamped to maximise its effect, as an open-plan design, more in line with the inside of a nightclub, had been introduced to ensure unrestricted views for all the customers. The evening crowd swelled, but still empty enough for a strange face to attract cold curiosity. I gaze at the grid of 4x4 TV screens on the central wall, blinking like a giant insect's eye, from which Voice of the Beehive's female front pairing beckoned through the screens during the video to I Say Nothing, with hypnotic harmonies and 12-string chimes. I hadn't felt like this since first seeing the Human League on Top of the Pops. The dilemma was a welcome distraction from the looks thrown my way by suspicious punters, itching to know the lone stranger, who the lone stranger was stood at the long empty bar. I only lived 8 miles away, but this may as well have been on the other side of the world. 2 days ago, I got the instructions from a cryptic phone call at home. Be at the Poets in Lower Broughton for 7:30. Get a drink at the bar, said the caller. A bloke will stand next to you and buy a Coke. It'll be the Lizard. Go with him when he goes for a piss. Keith? Is that you? I asked. Just do it, knobhead, said the familiar voice before cutting off. Keith was my older brother, and I'd been missing for a week before we got a knock from 2 members of Greater Manchester Police CID. They sat me and my mum down, asking for information about when we'd last seen or heard of him, pressing hard for the slightest detail. They needed to ask him about an incident where someone had been seriously hurt but wouldn't tell us anymore. It was quite easy to tell them nothing, as we only had nothing to tell. The only way our Keith would hurt anyone would be if it was for £1 million, said my mum as they left. But I knew different. He'd done worse for a lot less. It was 7:30 and the Lizard was nowhere to be seen. Movement came from a group in the far corner of the pub as 2 lads approached the bar in deep discussion. It looked like gazelles had been ditched for Reebok Classics round here. John got him down in the doorway, says one, as our elbows brush at the bar. Chewed a piece of his ear right off, mate, he explains, causing his pal to tip his head in a silent laugh, only to stop on catching me listening in. And what do you think, mate? He launched his face to an inch from mine. Sorry, mate, I wasn't listening, I say, and gesture towards the screens before the barman picks up on the early evening red flag to refocus the pair back to their drinks order. I fumble in my pocket, finding a 50p coin for the jukebox, and check it repeatedly on the walk across to the selection screen. Scrolling through the rows of sheer tat on the console, song selection takes on a greater significance, realising I could educate these lot with some musical enlightenment. I see State of the Nation by New Order and instantly connect the significance of my Lower Broughton location. This lot wouldn't have a clue this lot wouldn't have the slightest clue that the best band of the last 10 years was started just around the corner from this very spot. I returned to the bar as the pub screens briefly turned blank, signifying my tune was loaded, and scanned the faces lining the alcoves for a reaction. Only for the sight of dreadlocked twins to flash across the pub as the opening strains to Girl You Know It's True by Milli Vanilli fill the air, with Bernard Sumner nowhere to be seen. I desperately turned to the barman and try and explain that I didn't put this on, only for him to blank me for a grey-haired bloke in a shell suit ordering a Diet Coke with ice. After a brief swig, he waddled towards the gents, instantly jolting my memory as to why I was there in the first place. I watched him disappear through the toilet, then follow behind, finding him checking each cubicle on entry. Are you the lizard? I ask. He nods back. That's what everyone calls us. My real name's Derek. I'd stick with lizard if I was you, I say. Do people ever call you Liz for short? Your kids told me all about you, he says. He jerked my hands towards him, pressing hard into my palm. This is the key for your kid's flat. You need to go upstairs in the airing cupboard. There's a pair of jeans on the top shelf. Take yours off and put them ones on. What for, I ask. Just get rid of him, he says. Bin him somewhere out of the way. What's he done? Nothing, mate, he replies. He just needs you to help sort out a mix-up. He wags his finger with an air of caution. The police might be watching the gaff, so you'll have to do it in the dark. No lights on. You'll have to do it at night. The angry heads in the pub don't seem important anymore, as the strains of Milli Vanilli echo round the gents' toilet from the pub speakers. Tonight, says the lizard. It has to be done tonight.
Sorry, I muted myself then. Typical, fantastic Keith. Really, I love the ending on that. That is a proper cliffhanger of the ending of that one. So now, without giving anything away, is there much more to go with that story then, Azil?
There is, to be honest. There is. There's quite a bit. It's an extract from it. It's on my website. It's probably about a 12-minute read.
Yes,
I mean, I can read some more if you want. It's up to you. Or I can read some more.
Why do you give us a bit more then? Okay, we'll do it. I don't say I'll do all of it, but it's do another teaser because I think it's a great ending that was. You had me correct anyway. Yeah, go for it, mate. We'll put down part 2 then. Okay.
Right. All right. I'll go with part 2 then. I've not read this. It's probably about 5 years old. I've not read it for ages, so it's the first time I've read it myself in a while. But so that's why I'm probably a bit rusty on it. But right, okay. Part 2. I walked through the darkness across the twin football fields next to our kids' estate. His was a masonette. An entry was through a flight of concrete steps above the ground floor flat, across the balcony where its entrance was shared with 3 adjacent properties. I put my key in the door of the only one in total darkness and tiptoe up the stairs. The moon breaches the open bedroom curtains and I drop to my knees and crawl across the landing floor. The jacket around the hot water tank confirmed I was at the correct door and proceeded to feel my way towards the top shelf, causing a pair of jeans to fall to the floor. I paid £45 for the Levi 501s I was about to swap for some Burton's shite with zips where zips shouldn't be. I better get them back. The earlier pint ran its course, so I decided to take on the challenge of going to the toilet in total darkness. I know all about you, said the lizard, which was a weird comment and stayed with me as my thoughts drifted along with my aim, causing the toilet mat to get a brief soaking. The bloke who really did have show towels in his bathroom wouldn't be too pleased about piss on his floor, so I made sure I flushed to make up for it. I eased the front door closed and jogged back down the concrete steps. My foot misses the bottom step, causing me to fall forwards with a thump as my face smacks the pavement. Don't move, yells a voice as the torchlight is shone into my eyes. Put your arms flat on the ground. Saliva sprinkles the concrete flags, causing me to bypass fight and flight modes, going directly to frozen rigid. I'm lifted to my feet as a police radio crackles loudly before a faceless officer pants through the caution whilst we march to a waiting white Sherpa van with the blue lights in full swing. You're under arrest on suspicion of assisting an offender. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you may later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. A knot of panic inflates my stomach as the realisation that this would all be my fault hits home. I light a cigarette as the van door closes, frantically analysing what I'd done wrong to get caught. The van pulls away before braking suddenly, causing me to lurch along the wooden bench. The back door opens and a fist pierces the darkness, grabbing the cigarette from my mouth along with a synchronised punch in the nose before being grabbed by the hair to ram my head against the van's side panel. "You said you could smoke in here, you little prick," she says, then recloses the door before setting off into the night. The custody suite at Bootle Street Police Station bustles with noise and bodies. Constant shouts from one cell to the next bounce off the high, flaky walls, discussing stuff they'd be denying at some point in the future. A welcome voice offers a drink through the drop-down hatch of the cell door. "A tea, please, boss," I say. 2 minutes, he replies, as I lie back, wrapping up in the supplied thorny blanket, revealing the unofficial Bootle Street Visitors Book where fellow patrons had engraved the wooden bed to commemorate their stay at the city centre stopover. The jeans dig deep into my belly, and a thumb round the waist, attempting to loosen the irritation. They were filthy, and briefly pause as my hand reaches the front to discover actual pleats in the waist. I better get mine back. The custody officer appears again at the door hatch. "You got a visitor, young man," he says, opening up for the first time in 3 hours. I follow him through the corridor as the yelled conversations continue to echo through the confines of the cell block. The door to interview room 4 is open to reveal a familiar face sat across the table. "You've got 10 minutes, gentlemen," he says, before closing the door. Help had come in the shape of an old bloke in a silver shell suit. "What's going on, Lizard?" "Don't worry about anything, pal," he says. "You're just going to have to sit tight." I am sat tight. "We'll see you right, don't worry. Your kid will see you right." "Where is he anyway?" The Lizard places a finger to his lips and points towards the door, lowering his voice to a loud whisper. "No one knows, mate. We know he's safe, but no one's sure." "Everyone really appreciates what you're doing," says the Lizard. "So don't fuck things up by saying anything." "I just want to go home," I say. "No comment all the way," he replies, and then stands and knocks twice on the interview room door. A suited detective stands blocking the exit. "All okay, Derek?" he says. "Sound, mate." And the custody officer pushes past to usher me back to my cell. I turn round to see the detective shepherd the Lizard back into the interview room and close the door. The noise on the block lowers and I reread the bed carvings in the hope I'll be out before midnight. The door opens as a white forensic boiler suit is thrown at my feet by one of the 3 uniformed officers stood in the corridor. "Clothes off, everything except the undies. Now, please." "Can't you just charge me and let me go?" "Do it now, or we'll do it for you," snaps the voice from the rear. I strip to my boxes and step into the paper-thin, hooded boiler suit, tapping on the cell door in confirmation of the request as my clothes are removed in clear polythene bags. The only noise now is from the incoming shift as the custody suite's night crew drift into work. Nonces and grasses hide behind glasses and sashes, reads a carving on the wooden bench. And I try to think of anyone I know who meets the specific criteria. The only ones being the barber from a week before last, and maybe Trevor McDonald's from News at 10. The door swings open, and 3 officers summon me out, guiding me in an unholy trinity to the waiting custody sergeant, stood towering at the corner of the station desk. Now then, sir. He drops his glasses from head to nose, his arms stained with the clouded blue of a 70s swallow. I believe you've been read the caution this evening. A voice from behind confirms I had. What's happening to me, I ask. The cell noise is now absent as the sergeant explains I am to be recautioned. You've been arrested on suspicion of the attempted murder of a Mr. David Delaney on the 1st of April, 1990. You do not have to say anything. My legs weaken at every line. If you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on. Attempted murder. I haven't done anything. You'll be transferred to Central Detention Centre at Crown Square, pending an interview with officers from Rochdale CID, says the sergeant. We can arrange legal representation if you need it. The rear escorting officer pulls my arms back, placing cuffs on each wrist, then directs me towards the transit point with a gentle push on the back of my head. I really haven't done anything, I tell him, as we walk through the station yard. Laughter rose from the Sir Ralph Abercrombie pub next door, briefly muffling the DJ's patter before the opening salvo of a familiar tune floods the night air. Milli Vanilli, says the officer. You know this one, don't you? Floodlights of the station yard light his face as he places a hand on my shoulder. The surveillance team were all over it, he confides. It's clear as day, son. But I don't even know who this Delaney bloke is. Well, how did his blood get all over your jeans then? He says. The jeans? They aren't even mine. Of course they're not, son. Of course they're not.
Fantastic. Absolute. No, God, that's grim. Really, really grim, that, Keith. That's a fantastic piece, that, mate. You know what got me was you just said before then that you've not really read this out about 5 years. And that was really, really compelling stuff, that basically, mate. So
good.
Even I've heard you read some bloody grim stuff over the last couple of years. You do to have known you. That's probably the grimmest.
It's meant to be a bit like that, though. I mean, you know that story, right? I sent it to a lot of people from work and mates and stuff like that. And there's a bloke called Frank. He lives in Middleton, and he come up to me after. He went, "You know the lizard?" He said, "Did he used to clean windows in Blakely?" And I said, "No, mate." He said, "He did." He said, "I know him." He said, "I know him. Don't worry."
Oh, that makes it even worse, doesn't it? So, like,
it's the one of the best things, I think. No, not very rarely do people stop you and say, "That's amazing," right? But if somebody says to you, "Is that a true story?" I think you're halfway there to doing your job, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's a good point to start wrapping up that, mate. I agree. And my philosophy is if somebody comes up to you and liking your work or hating it, it's great. But if they come up to you saying, "Oh, I really felt that," and you're stood there thinking, I've just made that up off the top of my head, or you got that at some point. No, it felt real to me, that piece, mate. It really, really did. Tremendous stuff. Good, tremendous stuff, basically, mate. Listen, mate, we're going to wrap up here because we're going to talk the. We've both sworn twice already in this podcast, so let me finish up and say. Yeah, so we're going to wrap up now and talk some more shit off, Mike, because we might as well carry on swearing. So. Hang around, Keith.
Thanks for having me. Really much appreciate it. It's good to speak to you again because I've not seen you for a while, so it's good to catch up.
Always a pleasure, mate. So we'll wrap up here, guys. As Don Callis at Impact Wrestling says, stay safe and stay over.